Okay, guys, pretty easy one today. I just want to go over um, kind of basic landmarks. It seems that we're not quite understanding what we're looking at yet. I'm actually going to draw them rather than bring up the images because the images we should be able to see in lab, the actual ultrasound images in lab. So I'm going to draw kind of the idealized pictures um, and see how that works out. So without further ado, let's get this on the road. So um, I'm just gonna free wheel this. I'll pause the video a number of times, I'm sure, in order to not be too much of an idiot here. But so here's a liver with an unusually large left lobe. In fact, that's so large it'll actually throw off my image here. So let's do it more like this. Okay, that's probably a little more realistic. Um, but let's think about this, what it looks like in the ultrasound view. Ultrasound view. So um, one of the first things I want to talk about is this guy. You know the guy. Obviously doesn't always look just like that, but oftentimes does. I call him the little man. This is the umbilical segment of the left portal vein. By the way, guys, the midline of the body. Whoa, that's not what I meant. Your body's midline is about here, maybe even farther over. I probably could have taken this guy, the little man, and put him even farther over, but you know, different people are going to look different. So the body, remember, I know I mentioned this before, but I thought oops, hit the wrong one. Left, right, well, how about this? Right, left, okay? That's the midline of the body. The liver, though, is going to be more or less, well, left is going to come, I mean, this is left, but then again, this is left as well. And we don't get in the right until we wear it way over here. What actually makes a difference, or what actually changes it, and from our perspective, it's a line somewhere about there. That corresponds, of course, with IVC. The middle hepatic vein. Now, this is an ultrasound perspective. I'm going to get rid of this, though, because I want to talk about the middle hepatic vein a little bit more. Okay, so the little part of the, and so what does that mean? So my little man is over here. What does that mean? What that means actually is that there is more of an attachment that goes into the right portal vein. The right portal vein has an anterior and posterior, anterior and posterior branches to it. So this is left portal vein, right portal vein. And we never see this. Well, we could see this. We could see the left portal vein and the right portal vein, but then the main portal vein will be out of screen, out of the image, simply because it's like a three-legged stool. You can only see two legs at a time. You can see the right portal vein with the main portal vein. And to a smaller extent, you can see the main portal vein and left portal vein. So if we could see the three dimensions, we could see the three legs of the stool. This is what it more or less would look like. Left portal vein, this is still left portal vein down here. This is here. The little man is the umbilical segment of the left portal vein. This is why I say, by the way, when we're scanning, when we see, and actually, oh, you know what? Let me pull my eraser out. Where's all my drawings here? Here we are. Let me just do something here. Make it a little more. Let's get rid of some of this. Let's get rid of some of the wording here, just so we don't have to look at too much of a mess. So what did I mess up? Why is the drawing? I mean, obviously the drawing's not perfect, but why am I changing it? The reason I'm changing it is because we go from main portal vein and we switch from right and left, either right before or as the moment we enter the liver. Remember this whole area, well, that might be a little bit much, but that would be the hilum of the liver. That's the hilum of any organ, is where things go in and out, is the doorway. Okay. And so once again, you never see all three of these at once. If you do, you're either brilliant or you just happen to have someone with weird anatomy. Sorry, I'm still having my coffee. Okay. So why am I showing you this? All right, when we see that, that is the umbilical segment of the left portal vein. Sometimes we might see a little, if you're lucky, triangular structure. If you're really lucky, you actually see that. And no, this is not going in the Harry Potter Hogwarts style. This is actually a triangle with a circle in it. The circle itself is what's left over of the umbilical vein, whereas the triangle around it is more the connective tissue. So if you're lucky, you see that. If not, you might see just a little something else that's not quite a triangle. Depending on your angle, you might see something that seems like it's coming off the head, this missing head of this little man. You might even see this like that. And of course, that is, whether it's a triangle or whether you're seeing a little more straightened out, echogenic ligamentum teres. That is the ligamentum teres. There's also another ligament associated with this. I haven't been talking about it a lot because there's only so much we want to be doing here. But when I say there's a triangle with a circle in the middle, the ligamentum teres is really the circle, whereas the triangle, at least that is the falciform ligament. Okay, so what? Well, like Mr. S, you really haven't been talking about the falciform ligament. Well, the falciform ligament, if you could imagine the anterior abdominal wall, and there, of course, as we know, there's peritoneum. There's parietal peritoneum going around, and what it does is it dips down, comes back up, and keeps going around. And let's say there's another layer of fascia, not peritoneum, but just regular fascia going across. And inside of this little dip, ligamentum teres. That's the umbilical cord. So in utero, the vein, and by the way, in utero, the vein, the umbilical vein carries oxygenated blood. Normally we think of arteries as doing that, but in the OB or in utero, the vein. So the vein is taking blood from the belly button up to the liver. All right. So That's so this falciform ligament is that, and ligamentum teres, technically speaking, is that the circle. But we just call whatever we see inside the liver, we just call it all ligamentum teres. All right. Now I had a funny phone call, or not a phone call, text the other day. Mr. S, what looks like a Cheeto? What looks like a Cheeto in the liver? All right, well, that's a good question. We were to turn this liver around. Now this is a, I'm using the whole page, aren't I? This is a transverse view of the liver. So, in order to get this image, you're probably in the, well, you're not getting all of this. Of course, I already mentioned that, but in order to get the little man, the umbilical segment here, you are in the epigastrium, transverse, probably a little bit transverse oblique. So you're looking towards more or less the person's right shoulder. And think about that. You're looking towards the right shoulder, but you're still looking at the left lobe. So keep that in mind. If we were to go sagittal and go sagittal right through the little man, what does that image look like? Well, I already gave it away. Looks like a Cheeto. Possibly frijoles. That's neither here nor there. So let's do another liver. And the liver is kind of symmetrical, so it can look somewhat similar. Whether it's, now I've created a sick looking liver. Let's make it a healthy looking liver. So I've created a liver, by the way, that's more or less the same shape. There's a cement, like if you took a ball and you looked at it from, you know, the so-called transverse and so-called sagittal, it's going to look identical, right? It's because it's perfectly symmetrical. Liver is somewhat symmetrical too, in the sense that over on this transverse image, we see the left and the right. On this sagittal, and this, we'll call this trans, and this one over here, this is sagittal. This isn't left and right. Actually, though, since this is our plane of section, the whole thing is left lobe, and this is actually superior. In other words, towards the head, the heart. In fact, there's a heart right here, and this is inferior, down here. Ooh, inferior there, and that's inferior, but it has a kind of a similar shape. So just keep that in mind. But let's zoom in a little bit and create this little guy that you see. Well, on a lot of people, it looks more or less like this. And of course, the shape will change a little bit depending on the person. And we can fill that in. This is the little man. This little guy here is the same thing. When you looked at it from, look at this plane of section. See this plane of section right here? It's going straight through the body. We don't see the arms, we don't see the legs of the little man because they're out of the plane of section. We're only seeing the body. And we see that the body on most people, not all, but most people, is shaped something like this. Now, what's really nice about this picture, we already mentioned in the transverse picture that we can oftentimes see either a triangle or a little fuzzy, or sometimes even a line going down to what was the head of this of the little man. In sagittal, we definitely should see a line, and it's going to look something like this. If we catch it just right, on some people this is really bright, on other people it's not so bright at all. And once again, we're going to call this the ligamentum teres. And where does this go? Belly button. It's going to go down to the belly button. All right, because that's where it came from eventually. Actually, I really should say that it comes up from the belly button to the ligamentum teres. So let's talk about this for another moment. If we catch this liver just right, on some people you can, and other people you can't, oh, thank God I'm recording. Okay. I thought I went through all that without recording. I was going to cry. Let's draw in IVC. And I guess I didn't quite do that right. So I have to erase just a little bit of that and draw it in again. Okay, this is not my greatest hour here, but caudate lobe, right? So what separates the left lobe of the liver from the caudate lobe? Ligamentum. Anybody? Anybody? Venosum. And so, and this is something we're really supposed to cover next semester, but in utero, this is what happens in utero. Blood comes in, through here, right back out. That's why I didn't really draw this perfectly well. And right back into the heart. So that's why we have a ligamentum teres. That's why we call this the umbilical segment. That's why the ligamentum venosum is really there. In this line that you see between the left lobe of the liver and the caudate lobe, it's not actually the ligamentum venosum itself. It's the fissure of the ligamentum venosum, but we just call it the ligamentum venosum. So, once again, this is also in a person with bad cirrhosis of the liver. This doesn't happen. We're not going to see that again. That will, but on a person with bad cirrhosis, the blood needs to go somewhere. It can't go through the tissues of the liver because of the cirrhosis. It will now recanalize or repatenate. It's not a word, but the ligamentum teres, or the umbilical vein, and now blood will actually travel the other direction to the belly button in order to decompress the liver. So that's really why we care about the ligamentum teres. We also care about it because you don't want to be confused with the ligamentum teres and call it a tumor. It's not a tumor. So once again, let me just quickly, normal blood flow, hepatopedal, what is it? I think it's 80% of the blood supply is from the vein, and then 20% from the artery, which is also going in. All right, but we were talking about landmarks today, because I want us to get better with our landmarks. Okay, here we go. So what other major landmark of the liver? Well, the hepatic veins. Now, some of you have had some issue. I think most of you have had issues with understanding the hepatic veins, and then totally understandable. The reality of the hepatic veins, let's see. Well, once again, we'll draw the liver. And let's draw a diaphragm. I wish I hadn't done that. All right, well, don't need the diaphragm, but that diaphragm's there. You know that it's there. What's also right here is a heart. So we're only seeing a little bit of the heart, obviously, and this is the right atrium, right ventricle. Heart really lays out its side, not up and down like sometimes you think it is. I'm being, right atrium, right ventricle, left ventricle, left atrium up there. Okay. IVC, let's just use a straight line for that. It's so much easier. Okay, IVC comes up like that. Aorta is going to come up on the other side, but we don't need to draw that right now. And then there's going to be wow, that's pretty bad. It's one of my worst, but that's okay. There's going to be a right, middle, and left hepatic vein. These guys are veins, of course. Let's try to take a blue arrow. Blood is going out of the liver and into the heart, out of the body, up the IVC, into the heart, out of the liver, into the IVC, and quickly into the heart. Okay? That's the real position. How do we see it? We see it upside down. We're down here. We're looking from low, and we're looking, up. We're looking in that direction. Therefore, when we see on the screen, or what we see on the screen, is upside down. Now, I'd love to be able to spin this and show you what upside down really means. But that is not accurate. Yoink, zoink. That's not accurate. It's really, if I could take the page, you know what, I bet I could. Here, I'm going to pause this, draw a little better image, and then show you. I think I could do this. Okay, guys, I think this is a little bit better. Taking the time to draw something person apparently has cardiomegaly. I mean, look at the heart compared to the size of the liver. It's huge. But so what I was talking about before, and let's get rid of this for a second. If we think about the fact that we're looking from here, actually, let's do a curved. Oh, in fact, I want to do something that would be kind of cool here. Let's do this. Let's see. Here is our point of view is from down here. We have a curved transducer in the epigastrium, right? And that curved transducer gives us a view like that on our screen. So whatever is inside of this cut off bundt cake of a triangle is what we're going to see on our screen, right? Our screen. Well, I'll draw the screen in after this. So we can start to think about it like this. We're seeing it upside down. So if I turn it like this, now I have the what's on our screen. The only problem is by turning it that way, I do now have the hepatic veins coming up from the bottom of our screen. See, because we've turned everything upside down. This is how we're actually going to view it. But this isn't accurate. Why is it not accurate? All right, actually, pause it real quick. Okay, I wanted to redraw the transducer. So this is not perfectly accurate, although it starts to get us thinking in the right way. All right, here's back to our normal physical position. Transducer is down here. It's a curved transducer. We're holding it in the lower epigastrium, a little bit towards the right shoulder. Have the patient take a deep breath in. You look up, 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 and you find the right, middle, and left hepatic veins. And you might have a little bit of the heart itself in the image. Of course, this is lung over here, so all you see is the dome of the liver, maybe some mirror artifact, but you really don't see anything over here. But you might get the heart because you can actually see the heart because it's not liver, or it's not lung, it's not filled with air. So we're looking at the liver from this point of view, but flipping it around in a circle doesn't do us justice on what things actually look like. Let's see if I can pull the whole thing down a bit. And what it actually is going to look more like is, I don't know if I can do this. I still don't know if I can do it. Pull it down a little bit more. And there, voila. Now you're thinking, okay, that is still very confusing to me. Well, okay. Let me do a couple of things. Let's make this more like that. And I haven't done this before, so I'm not 100% sure how well this is going to work, but let's get rid of things that are outside of the screen. So outside of our region of interest, or our area of being able to see, and actually we really don't see this. We don't see the IVC in this perspective. So let's get rid of the IVC as well, because that's going to confuse us a little bit. And voila. Now, you're like, voila. Voila what? Voila, voila. Waka, waka. Sorry. When I was a kid, Sesame Street, the Muppets were pretty big. Okay. Now, kind of a three-legged stool again. We don't often see all three of these perfectly well. You might see two, and then you have to turn a little bit in order to see the third one. But sometimes we do see this. And so remember now, this is now right, middle, and left. All right. We're just seeing it upside down. And do you remember the progression, how I drew it before? We flipped it. We flipped it like a page, like you grab the bottom of the page and you flipped it over, so the page is now upside down. This is more or less the view that we see, and this is why we see, like in the corner, everyone's like, "What's that moving?" Well, that's the heart. You actually see a little bit of the heart. We see the IVC, a little more circular relief right here, and that's how we see the hepatics, and that's why the hepatics are upside down on our screen, but not turned this way. That's important to note. So left, when you turn it, let's see, from bottom up, it might be upside down, but the left stays left, the mid stays middle, and the right stays right. There goes my neighbor with the Maserati. All right. All right. What other landmarks? Let me tell you something. Let me tell you something about how we're measuring the liver. And so there's some confusion on that. When we're sagittal, and part of the confusion is my fault because there is somewhat of an issue on differences in opinion. It just didn't look right. I don't think it looked right. All right. Right lobe, liver, and how to measure it. Guys, we've been measuring this for decades because here's what happens. How should I show shadowed? There's a certain amount of shadowing that occurs when we're looking through the coronal image. So what I've drawn as a shadow is essentially non-visible. This is a non-visible region of the liver when we're looking through the costal image. In other words, a kind of a coronal image through the right side of the patient. And if you can't see this, you cannot measure from here to here because you can't see it. You cannot put your caliper sometimes you can go just a little bit into a shadow if you know for sure, like on the like the very tip of a kidney. Sometimes it's just barely shadowed out, but you know where it ends. That's okay. So what we've done traditionally is measured. We measure from here, the last part of the liver you can see, to the last part of the liver you can see at this end. And that's all well and good, but it's actually technically incorrect. This is what everyone's been doing. Now, Southwest X-ray, I really need to sit down with them and see exactly what they're doing. First of all, they don't measure through the costal line. They measure from the anterior. So the transducer is up here on the anterior approach. And what they're supposed to measure, what we're all supposed to be measuring, is the absolute length. I'm going to put a little dotted line straight down, and then an actual line What we're supposed to be measuring is the greatest length superior to inferior cranial caudal, the cranial caudal length. Whereas this is the longest distance possible. I forgot what the greatest diameter or whatever. Now it's not going to be a huge difference, but when we're talking about the difference between hepatomegaly or not, this does count for something. So, and in order to get this picture, according to Melissa and myself, we like to see the right kidney in long. By seeing the right kidney in long, what we're doing is we're proving that we're long on the liver. Why is that important? Because remember, I just said earlier that the liver is somewhat symmetrical. And so you could be very oblique on this liver and really be measuring across the right lobe rather than caudal to cranial. So what I'm trying to do is the best as I can. I'm trying to get my students to at least image a liver so that, let's see, we're going to mitigate the amount of shadowing we have to deal with. Maybe there'll be some shadowing, but not as much. So in other words, we're going to try to see higher and manipulate that transducer, manipulate the patient's breath and everything to the point where we're starting to see more. Rather than having it shadowed all the way down to the very posterior edge, maybe just some shadowing on this top corner. And so at this point now, we can measure something a little more like that. That is my compromise to two worlds. The world in which everyone in the world is doing this. Everyone in the world is doing this line. This line is technically the most correct line. So we're going to try, and anytime you can achieve this, going directly from the most caudal to the most, the most cephalad to the most caudal, if you can do this line, do it. If you can't, approximate it as close as possible. I hope that makes sense. This is what everyone's doing it. Oh my God, everyone takes this image, that measurement. Correct is cranial caudal. I'm just saying we're going to do our best to make it as cranial caudal as possible. We're going to do our best for that. I don't fully understand the anterior approach. I don't know how on an adult who is difficult to scan, how you possibly can get that image. So I'm not disagreeing with Southwest X-ray. I just simply don't understand how they could possibly do it correctly. I could see how they could do it incorrectly, and that's the scary part. Okay, I hope that wasn't confusing. So that's a liver measurement. Oh, you know, so I was just thinking, wow, what else do we need to talk about? We need to talk about gallbladder, right? Think kind of need to talk about gallbladder. So sometimes you see the gallbladder like so, right? Standing up. Once again, gallbladder is not really standing up. It's actually hanging downward so on most people, this is going to be more or less cranial, and this is going to be more or less caudal. And yeah, there's also, it's how about this? Superior, no. anterior caudal, and this is posterior cranial. So there is somewhat of a posterior to anterior tilt, but it's really more cranial to caudal. In other words, towards the person's head is the neck, and it hangs like a pear off of a tree. It just doesn't look that way on ultrasound. Okay, that's not the most important thing. Sometimes, by the way, you will see a line, an echogenic line, going all the way down to a portal vein. We don't often see it, we don't always see it, but that, when you do see it, that is called the main lobar fissure. It is the same fissure, by the way. Now, this is the, how about this? Well, the gallbladder itself is not in the liver. It's posterior to liver. It lays within the main lobar fissure, but it's still posterior to liver, main lobar fissure up to a portal vein, which is clearly in the liver. This main lobar fissure, as we go further through the liver, we will eventually also find in the same general plane, you will find the middle hepatic vein, because the middle hepatic vein lays within the main lobar fissure. That's really hard to demonstrate on ultrasound, so I'm not gonna go crazy about that. I am recording. Tell me I'm recording. I am recording. Okay. All right. So let's erase this, because we don't always see that. I just wanted to point that out. When we see, well, this is the neck, body, fundus, neck, body, and fundus of the gallbladder. We will see, if we're lucky, if only if we're lucky, we'll see the cystic duct, and that goes all the way to the what? What is this? Come on, guys. Common bile duct. It's actually over on this side. It's actually the common hepatic duct. I drew the little inchworm sign because I want to draw this little circle in, which is what? Hepatic artery. That is, well, actually the right branch of the hepatic artery. And then this branch is, of course, as well. The right branch of the hepatic artery is the little circle. Nine times out of 10, it is underneath. Every once in a while, you'll find it on top, and that is fine. Common bile duct, common hepatic duct. Just out of, just for simplicity's sake, because we rarely see, we don't often see this cystic duct, and we certainly don't see it go into the hepatic ducts very well. But we do see this sign, and so I say anything from, you can go ahead and call, even though technically this is still hepatic duct, until the common hepatic duct meets the cystic duct, it is the common hepatic duct. And then once it meets that, then it becomes the common bile duct. But if you're imaging, I don't care where you call, you can call any of this common bile duct. It's okay. It's okay to call this common bile duct. Everyone does it. We all do it. But beyond this, beyond the hepatic artery, higher up into the liver, then we definitely want to call it common hepatic duct. So this is all common bile duct down here, common hepatic duct, even though from here to here, we're actually lying. It's actually still common hepatic duct, but we're going to go ahead and lie and call it common bile duct when we measure lumen only measurement. All right. Where does this happen, by the way, guys? That red circle, or how about this, right? All of this right in here, that is right at the hilum of the liver. not an inch inside the liver. If you're an inch inside the liver, you are clearly at that point in the right portal system. Wait a minute, Mr. S, why are you talking about the portal system? Well, remember, this is the portal triad. Portal triad. So let's just add our portal vein. Main portal vein. Common bile duct is part of the portal triad, along with the hepatic artery. This portal vein, of course, that's going to turn into right and left very quickly. All right. In fact, the right is actually more or less. The right portal vein is more or less in line with the main portal vein, whereas the left portal vein takes a sharp turn, a hairpin turn. Okay. Oh, there's only one other thing. One other quick thing. It's actually pancreas. I've got room here. I've got room here. Let's see. When we draw our pancreas, if we do it, it's going to stylize it like this. And of course, there's this is all vein under. Well, I guess we'll draw the vein in. Let's draw the vein in with a blue color. And okay, from this direction, we have what? Which vein? Which vein's coming from this direction? From the tail. The tail. Where else do we see the tail of the yeah, tail of pancreas? At the spleen. Splenic vein comes up to this point right here. All right. This point right here. I'm going to keep hitting that to make it dark. That is the confluence. Rarely do we say the end of the splenic vein. What people oftentimes say, and it has to do with the anatomy that's hard for us to see, they call this the superior mesenteric vein, because coming from the opposite direction that we cannot draw in this picture right now is the superior mesenteric vein. So let's draw the superior mesenteric vein. All right, let's get... Okay, another picture. I'm gonna have to draw a little smaller this time, I guess. Let's draw that superior mesenteric vein coming up to, I'll make that dark again. There's that point. It's the same point, but guys, I know this is hard. This is our, Buena Vista, Colorado. Never answer from there. I'm trying to sell you something. Okay. Trans on the body. Your transverse on the human body, not on the back. And this is a sagittal view. In this case, this was the splenic vein. This is the superior mesenteric vein. But this blue dot is the same point on both of these images, all right? I probably could have drawn this better, but this is it. And then I'm going to go get ready for work. If I take a plane of section right there, okay? If I turn from transverse to sagittal, and my plane of section is through, well, basically the head, the superior mesenteric vein, or the confluence, and then through the uncinate process. That means on my sagittal image, I'm going to see something more or less like this. I'm not going to see something quite like that because that is not the right structure. Okay, let's do this. Like a lopsided burger. Uncinate process, uncinate process. Head to head. And of course, confluence to confluence. SMV ends right here. Most books will call this point the end of the SMV. I actually prefer the confluence because it is at the point where the two veins are coming together, the splenic vein in that direction and the SMV in that direction. And I'm going to stop share just for a second, and then we are done. Remember, let's see, from my splenic vein coming from my spleen across, my superior mesenteric vein is coming from my belly up. They are meeting right about here. It's all backwards to me right now. That is, this point right there is the confluence. That is where the pancreatic head is. They come together to form the portal vein, which continues on as right, and then the left portal vein comes off at quite an angle, but that is where the edge of my liver is. Does that make sense? So backwards, everything's backwards on this. Splenic vein, superior mesenteric vein, they come together, they create the main portal vein, and then as soon as we enter the liver, the left portal vein turns hard and the right portal vein more or less goes straight out like that. I don't know how that demonstration worked out, other than don't blame me, these buttons are really weak. Anyway. All right, I'll see half of you in a little bit. Hope this helped.